So Ryan Grimm went on the Majority Report a few days ago now and discussed some of the technicals behind what Elon Musk is doing with this Doge entity that he's created and what exactly might be the long-term plan. And so it was a long conversation they had, and there were different things that they floated and different theories that Ryan Grimm had. And, Sam Seder is essentially of the mind that the goal is to cause as much destruction in the federal government as possible, which is clearly the case. But when it comes to a guy like Elon, I do think we got to ask, what is it that he sees being the play? This new landscape that they're trying to create in the wake of destroying the federal government, other than just being guys like Elon can spend as much money as they want and do whatever they want and wield power however they want. Clearly, that's the world he envisions for himself. But on a more technical level, how is this supposed to play out with his businesses, right? Like, the core of Elon Musk's wealth as of right now is electric vehicles. So this administration that he's doing all of this with is diametrically opposed to electric vehicles. And so even though they might, and there certainly will, be carve-outs for Elon Musk's companies and government contracts and whatever, and that goes to the theme of what I'm going to talk about later, Donald Trump's administration is not going to reverse course when it comes to electric vehicles. They're just not. So in some other way, Elon Musk sees the long-term play business-wise in terms of how he can gain the monopoly that he wants to gain in other realms. And again, being the main electric vehicle manufacturer that the government relies on is one way to corner that market. So clearly he's trying to put himself in that position. But I think when it comes to Doge, and specifically what they're doing with hacking basically into these government systems and getting as much information as they can and really trying to drill down into the technicals of how these systems work. Regardless of racist tweets that got this one kid fired and other controversies with these kids, they're clearly weirdos, but also Elon picked them up because they're extremely technically knowledgeable. And so they're trying to do something inside of these systems, even if it's just gathering data on how those systems work. So let me play this clip of Ryan Grimm and Sam Seder talking about that. And I think in real time in this conversation, they kind of touched upon the larger point that is going to play out over the course of the next few years.
Here, there's no plan to make the government more efficient. There's only a plan to make it to destroy it, really, it seems like.
Yeah, because then you have to privatize the things that you actually do need to get done. Like, oh wow, look at this, the government can't really function anymore. Checks aren't even going out.
Right.
People are angry. Well, let's get
that's why he's going in there. Because he wants to set up a system that will do what the American government does in terms of issuing checks and destroy ultimately the government's ability to do it. And then all of a sudden his business is right there, and then bingo.
I mean, what was his original money that he made at PayPal? And what did they figure out? If you sit in...
So what Ryan doesn't go on to mention there, and they continue to talk more about this from different angles. Definitely recommend people watch the full conversation. I think they posted that part of it as its own clip, like a pretty long clip. So definitely go watch the full thing because it gets into a lot of the details of what exactly we're talking about here and how this has played out. But what Ryan doesn't mention is that not only was Elon Musk's first successful venture in the tech world PayPal, not a venture that he started or got the ball rolling with, but something that he joined later and took credit for, similarly to how he did with Tesla. But Elon has also said that what he wants Twitter to be, what he wanted to turn Twitter into, this whole everything app idea, is a place where people can make calls, contact different people through various means, have casual conversations with people, get their news, and also payment systems. He wanted people to be able to buy and pay for things through Twitter. And he pointed to Instagram and said Instagram has become essentially a marketplace, and it's very good at selling items, and Twitter doesn't do that. He pointed out that Twitter's ads don't work very well, which he has only made worse in his time there. The ads have gotten to a pretty ridiculously low and sometimes hilarious level of quality. But the core of what he's saying there is true. Facebook and Meta have essentially become a large payment system for advertisers. Advertisers can pay for advertising space. They pay the company directly. And because the company has created such a sophisticated system of tracking people, it can deliver on those ads enough that it makes it worth it. And other social media companies haven't caught up with that quite as much. TikTok a little bit, but TikTok works differently. So what Elon wants is for Twitter or X, his vision for X as a company. I don't call it X right now because in my view, it's nothing more than Twitter. He hasn't turned it into anything other than what it was before. So it's still Twitter to me. But his goal with X, his vision for the company of X, is to be essentially the arch villain, all-powerful corporation that controls many different aspects of people's casual lives and consumer behaviors. So when Elon Musk is diving into these systems and he's getting these super nerds who are able to find ways to extract that information, ways to interpret that information, and maybe at a stretch, we're supposed to believe that they can improve on some of these systems, although that just doesn't seem to be their goal at all. Their goal seems to be more to eliminate as much of the functionality as they possibly can. And in doing that, to design something that is a parallel system that can then be contracted out and become the new standard, not just for how people pay for things, but for how government payments are distributed, how government services are distributed, Social Security, Medicare. This is the vision for how to privatize those things, is to seize control of the payment mechanisms and present us with a sleek, shiny, capitalist, innovative version of those same things that ultimately is just going to do the same thing that the other capitalist, sleek dreams that they've sold us do, which is cut costs, cut down on the quality of the product in order to continue the revenue growing. So that is, I think, the future of what Elon Musk is trying to do. That is what we're looking at in terms of the long-term implications of Elon fucking around in these systems, destroying them as much as possible, but also trying to figure out the essential parts of it that can be replicated for a profit. And I don't think people should underestimate Elon's ability to do this. I mean, I know that it's clear that he's pretty stupid in many ways, and it's easy to look at him and just see an oaf who is constantly getting in his own way and just like presenting the stupidest possible ideas. Even some of the ideas that he is floating in regards to Doge. I mean, he said because he doesn't like that judges are now starting to slow down his ability to infiltrate these systems. He said that we should create a system where the worst 10% of judges every year are eliminated based on the decision of a governing body, which essentially just means Republicans. He wants Republicans to be able to decide which judges to get rid of on a yearly basis. That's the type of idea that Elon Musk throws out there. Or as he put it, he thinks that there should be, as a standard, no regulations. Not as a standard, some regulations that you peel back, but as a standard, no regulations. So that's just the genius, a look into his genius mind. But we should not underestimate the fact that Elon has successfully pulled off large-scale, systematic monopolizations of multiple different vectors of our society already. He did do it with electric vehicles, and he was able to mostly do that before he became this enormously controversial and right-wing figure, right-wing to the point that he's literally doing Nazi salutes. And in the course of the time that he's taken that right-wing turn, he has successfully bought and leveraged Twitter to be a propaganda vehicle, which very well could have been much more instrumental to the win of Donald Trump than we even realize. Even if there was no vote changing or system-based voter suppression that took place, Elon Musk still has corners of that market monopolized through Starlink and other markets. And so he is a major entity that the US government relies on when it comes to contracting for weapons, for satellites, and the different types of systems that he's created. So clearly his goal now is to dump as much capital as he can into creating an alternate capitalist system that will supposedly do all of the things that the federal government does. If you take things that the government is supposed to do as a service to provide people things that they have a right to, like Social Security, you're not necessarily doing that in the most profitable way because your goal is not to make a profit. Your goal is to disseminate resources. That's what the federal government does. Capitalism can be more efficient when it comes to designing ways to make a profit, but that often leads to less efficiency on the consumer side and a gradual degrading of services in the name of endless pursuit of profit. So, in other words, Elon Musk trying to create a new capitalist shadow government is bad, and it's just going to lead to us being screwed over in a million more ways than we already are in everyday life. So, my message here, aside from just being the fact that we should pay attention to that, we should pay attention to what Doge is doing, we should pay attention to the systems that are at play, and how they work, what Elon Musk is doing, as accurate of information as we can get on that. As of right now, it seems like where things are is that the courts have told Elon that he can't have unmitigated access to the treasury systems, so that has slowed things down. But Elon is talking in a way that sounds like him and Trump are preparing to defy the courts in some way if they feel like they have to. So while the process has been slowed up a little bit, it does not mean that we're not going to start to see, perhaps them taking some of these buildings by force and that sort of thing. So that is what's on the near horizon. And I think it's important for us to dedicate as much of our mental capacity to the details of how these government systems work and how they stand to be damaged, how they're going to be damaged, and what exactly the people that want to replace those systems are doing. And that's the hardest thing to pay attention to right now. There's a lot of other stories to talk about. Trump is going for the throat on many issues, but it's possible that some of the stuff that he's doing is going to end up being relatively toothless when it comes to these sweeping executive orders or wanting to go to war with various parts of the world. I mean, he wants us talking about America owning Gaza, so we're not talking about the specifics of the federal government. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be talking about both of those things, because we should. And I think Donald Trump's capacity to, pull off some kind of horrific swindle in the case of Gaza and colonize that land further, it's definitely within the realm of possibility that will happen. But I think the technicals of all of this, even if that does happen, guess whose systems are going to facilitate it? Guess who is going to want to be there first when it comes to creating the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure that will connect whatever they build in Gaza to this new version of the American government that Donald Trump's administration wants to build. So it's all going to come back to that. And the future of the next few years is going to depend on what systems they end up building and how successfully they do it. And that's where we need to be like water. And we need to pay close attention to what's happening. We need to use all the skills that we have. The smartest among us definitely, doing things like creating websites, creating services that people can use. And if they're going to create some kind of dual power using capitalist technology and some of the most soul-sucking, data-sucking technology on the planet, then we also have to create a dual system. We've got to create something that can disseminate resources to people efficiently and generously. Something that, we have to develop our own ways of reaching one another, giving information to each other, staying up to date on each other's locations, whereabouts, well-being. I'm not talking about a system of tracking. I'm talking about a system of interconnectedness that cannot be infiltrated by what Elon Musk is doing. And the bigger we think in terms of creating those type of rogue systems on our own, and the more clever we are in terms of filling the space that they are leaving open with their destruction, then the more we can create things that actually challenge the utility and the sustainability of the systems that they want to create. Because the advantage that we will have is that our goal is to extend resources to the maximum amount of people that we can. And that is not their goal. And ultimately, in the absence of a federal government, or a federal government that works well, them trying to create the most profitable systems that they can is not what's going to end up meeting the needs of people. People are going to be left behind by that. They're going to start to see how government affects their own lives. And the more we can fill that space and get people to understand that a more socialistic way of distributing resources amongst ourselves is actually solving some of these problems that these people are creating, then the more we can start to move the country in that direction. If you like this video, like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this show. You'll get exclusive access to videos early, all kinds of exclusive content like music. If you like the music that plays in these videos, all those beats are going to be posted there. New songs that nobody's heard is going to be posted there, all kinds of stuff. And if there's stuff that you want to hear, kinds of content that you would be interested in, let me know, and we'll figure it out.